Hey everybody, what's up? It's me, it's Pete, and I'm coming back to you with another edition of Pete Plays Tyranny. And today's episode, I'm not sure exactly what it has in store, except for the fact that we're going to get to know Barik. Now, I don't know how long conversations with Barik will take. Our verse conversation took about 40 minutes maybe 30 minutes. 30 minutes last time, so buckle up for more talking, because we're going to learn about Barik. On last episode, we learned that Verse was a well-trained assassin who went out with her sisters and did battle. She came from a farm where she felt suppressed, and her murderous rage was suppressed, but now she's just plagued by the past. She's tortured by the fact that she steals an essence of all of her cohorts. And curiosity would say that she may steal mine? I hope. I don't hope. So let's get talking to Barik.
You look as if you have something on your mind. By all means.
Placing his weapon to his side, Barik salutes you. The joints of his armor groan in protest.
What can I do for you?
I'd like to know more about you, sir. I'm the line your enemies cannot cross. All other details are meaningless, but I suspect you have some thirst for details, so ask away. Did you seek the trade of war, or did it find you? Both, I suppose. I knew fighting was in my blood. And the Disfavored offered me a chance to use my skills to bring peace. Otherwise, I'd have wound up some brigand or an enforcer to a crooked merchant. Barik taps his scabbard, looking away in thought. Verse chimes in and says, "You think Ash and his legion bring peace? That's cute. But it doesn't hold water from where I'm standing, big guy. I've seen them spill as much blood as any chorus gang." Barik fires back. "You've clearly been too busy sacking villages and stealing crops to notice how our proper army conducts a war. We sow order, not discord." Oh, I can choose a side. I'm still a little bit sick. I'd say Verse has a point. This favorite could reconsider their approach. Barik is right. The Scarlet Chorus is too chaotic to recognize order. I could stop them, or I'm going to say nothing. Enough of this. You are making us look foolish before the Fatebinder. May I continue my story, or do you plan on interrupting again? Barik waits until Verse makes a rude, dismissive wave before continuing. Ta. The Disfavored needed recruits in anticipation of the march south. They offered to care for my mother and brother as long as I stayed with the Legion, which is a better guarantee than you'll find anywhere else. I was an elite fighter as far as most were concerned, though still green by Disfavored standards. Luckily for everyone, my skills improved under the Iron Marshal's rigorous training. Okay, so he joined, and he's a strong guy, good at combat and such. Sure. Tell me about your name, Barik. Barik is a shortening of my northern surname, which has been passed down through the generations since Graven Ash assembled his army. I go up by it because I wear it with pride. The proper form is Barikonin. Beyond its age and association with the General's Legion, the name of Barikonin has no great titles or associations. I hold no claim to a great house or legacy, save for the Disfavored. They are all the kin I need. Okay, well, it's the story with your armor. So his name's not special. He's not particularly interesting, I guess. He's just a good, fundamental soldier.
It is a symbol of Kairos' will, one that I am not likely to forget. I found this armor. Perhaps it would be better to say that it found me during the Edict of Storms.
I proclaimed the edict. Where were you when it struck? I had taken to battle, knowing full well that the edict was approaching, and the people of Stalwart were prepared. In spite of every setback, my sense of duty compelled me to march on the stronghold in the heart of the realm. So, that's because I told the people of Stalwart that the edict was going to happen. Our march was a hasty one. A cohort of disfavored soldiers vanished in the second year of the war. Among them, the daughter of Graven Ash. After a long silence, we learned that she was held in the fortress of Sentinel Stand. Go on. As we surrounded the citadel, I heard the opening peals of thunder, as did the scout I was busy trying to kill. Then the winds hit like an avalanche. Many of us begged Kairos for deliverance. What else were we to do? The winds knocked the legs of our offensive out from under us. All the decorated soldiers I brought to the battle were swept up and dashed to pieces, their armor and bodies mixing with the dirt of a tornado that spun in maddening revolutions. A piece of the citadel wall broke off and nearly crushed my skull. I only remember a few scattered moments from the storm, like the flying bits of bronze and iron cutting my flesh, the severed limbs of fallen soldiers tumbling through the air. Eventually I woke up, thinking myself trapped under rubble. When I rose and felt like I was buckling under my own weight, that's when I realized I was stuck, right and truly stuck, inside this heap of scrap. Looks like pretty solid protection, though. That would be an understatement, if only it protected me from foolish questions. Ha ha ha. Barik regards you in such a way that you can tell he's rolling his eyes. A forlorn sigh escapes his helmet. Do you handle your own repairs? I try to keep the surface oiled to slow the spreading rust, and I bend the plates from time to time. But repairs? Maintenance? No. If you have any ideas of how to better maintain this situation, I'm open to discussing them. Okay, back to my questions. By all means, Fatebinder. As with all disfavored, I assume you grew up in the Northern Empire. I should come up with a character voice for my guy. That's right, I grew up in Battle's Rest, and then trained at Fort Resolution before they marched me out to support the second cohort. I hope to spend my rusting years in Fretton Shores, unless of course I die in glorious battle, which would be preferable. My mother is good with the soil, my father with rings. He spends much of his time away on one merchant's errand or another. Still, I'm lucky to say they're both alive. Okay. I mean, not much out of this. Tell me about the Disfavored, sir. We are the Iron Legion, the warrior elite of Kairos' fighting force. I could easily lose count of the hours extolling our glories. What is it you'd like to know? Have you fought in any notable battles? I served in Stalwart for the better part of a year, faced the enemy everywhere from Coral Run to Sentinel Stand. I lost count of the battles. Seems like we fought every other day. The sigh echoes in the cavern of his helm. Some of our best victories took place there, fighting an enemy worthy of our iron, but we were not successful enough to please the Overlord, and the final intervention was harsh on all of us. Harsh on us all. Barik takes in a deep breath, his arms folding as his posture stiffens. I had an unusual view of the Edict of Storms. Kairos' judgment left its mark on me, yet considering how we fought at Stalwart, with the skill and honor of legend, only the Edict is remembered. A shame. Tell me about Graven Ash. Graven Ash is the general of the Disfavored, veteran of centuries of battle and an Archon without peer. I would follow him to the void and back without question. Barik swings his arm in salute. How did it come to serve Kairos? Before the uniting of the Northern Empire, Graven Ash served as a warlord in the service of one of the local kings that defied Kairos' rule. Incredible as it may seem, Ash stood against Kairos' rule. Though his army was dismantled by Kairos' overwhelming numbers, Ash's force performed admirably. It was said that he and his troops claimed 77 lives for each of their own. Kairos took an interest in the military genius that bloodied his army. Graven Ash was summoned to a conclave of Archons, and though he was sent in chains, he left as an Archon, having been granted a position of power in Kairos' great host of war. Thus the Disfavored were born. All of us today trace our line back to those warriors that impressed Kairos with their will and tenacity. The only difference is now we fight on the winning side. Though the general seldom speaks of it, I know that Ash humbled himself in order to spare his troops the brunt of Kairos' punishment. His loyalty to the old blood of the North is beyond question. Gotta save your troops. And he would make it again to save any of us. There has never been a more devoted and attentive leader. Barik makes a proud fist and steps to a salute with the forceful clatter of pots and pans. I'm more interested in what magic does he wield. That's interesting, though. He, led an army against Kairos, and then Kairos is like, that was cool. Good job. Way to go. You're on our side now. And then Graven Ash was like, sure, whatever. All I know is battle and war. So what kind of magic does he have? Ash works his magic through us, his soldiers. When we do battle, Ash seems to know the events even before our runners have given word. Most importantly, though, he protects us. It's a bit tricky to explain unless you've experienced it. I can think of countless times I've been struck by a spear, or hit with an axe, and even run through with an arrow, and in each of those moments the pain and injury just cease to be. None of us know how he does it, or how he can sense that we're in danger and intervene from afar, but I suppose that's why he's an Archon. What he does probably wouldn't make any sense to someone like me. What else do you know of his past? I follow him into battle. I am not his personal scribe, and if I did know more of him, it would not be my place to say. Barik takes a half step back, folding his arms across his chest. How do you feel about Graven Ash? How do I feel about him? Archon Ash is the bravest, warmest, most compassionate general who ever lived. He's a living icon of leadership and courage. Barik tilts his head slightly to the side, as far as the suit's limited range of motion permits. Ash is a soldier, but he doesn't kill for sport. A leader, but he doesn't issue commands to hear himself talk. He demands discipline and sober conduct of his troops, and I applaud such standards. Back to my questions about the Disfavored. What can you tell me about your time in the Legion? I joined the Legion 3 years before the conquest of the Tiers began. Though handy with a few weapons, my size made the perfect addition to a phalanx. I've served with the Stone Shields ever since. Proud to say I stood front row, right corner in over a dozen battles. That has been my place ever since the Iron Marshal gave me the assignment. The Bastard City, the Gates of Judgment, Vendrine Pass, Akon's Ring, a quick tour in Barristan Chains, and then Stalwart. I spent a long time in Stalwart. Lost a lot of friends there. He talks about Stalwart a lot, and obviously, since that's when he became this hulking mess of a human being, it probably affects him a lot. Not surprising. What are the other Disfavored lieutenants? They are Graven Ash's most trusted officers and warriors from the Iron Guard. Between Ash's arcane powers of command and his cadre of gifted leaders, there's little confusion or chaos in the ranks. Tell the one they call Iron Marshal. She takes it upon herself to train and harden our greener recruits. Not only that, she has a keen eye for talent and how to foster it for leadership. She is the youngest member of the Iron Guard. Her family line served the Disfavored back before Ash bowed to Kairos. Say what you will of how many seasons she's weathered, her lineage is impressive beyond measure. So they place some amount of trust in lineage and family. What of Karen's disciple, Radix? An Earthshaker, who swore service to Karen a few years before the conquest. Since Karen is gone, the cult now follows Radix. Unlike his Archon, at least he knows how to follow orders. To his credit, Radix seems to appreciate the honor of fighting alongside the Disfavored. Karen was always peeved to be invited in the glory. The mages seem a necessary complication. They are insubordinate and can't lug their own supplies, but I would not want to go to war without their spells of tremor and leaping stones. What about Barik? Barik is a devoted leader, and Ash seems to hold his counsel with high regard. Both set their troops ahead of themselves. God. Which I'm sure is why they work so well together. I need a cough button. He's no magician, but he does share a special connection to his warband, and they are entrusted with the most important scouting assignments. They say he can see what his scouts see. hear what they hear. So in some ways, he's like a cheaper version of the voice of the rat. What about Varmas? He's the finest of us, second only to Ash. Varmas is an evocatus, a soldier who lived to see the end of his term of service. It's rare for anyone to survive that long, much less willingly return. These days, he lends his tactical expertise to Graven Ash, though by all rights he should be enjoying his twilight years in a seat of honor and dignity. Okay, back to disfavored questions. Why didn't the Legion prevent the uprising of Endrines? Well, that's an interesting question. I think that is a question you ought to ask the Scarlet Chorus. They were too charged with ensuring the locals remain vanquished and unarmed. Barik lurches forward as he speaks, iron plates grinding under his motions. Seems unnecessary. So I could blame it on the disfavor, blame it on the chorus, or blame it on the Vendrian Guard. Like, really, it's both their faults, but it was the Vendrian Guard's rebellion. I still don't know how I feel about either of these factions. I don't feel strongly about either of their styles. I guess I'm more leaning chorus, but not sure. That is a supposition unworthy of you, Fatebinder. The Tears are but children before Kairos. We don't blame them for their ignorance, but the responsibility to set them straight is ours alone. Okay. I gained some fear. How are we doing on fear? 55% to tier 1. What more can you tell me of the Legion? The disfavored accept only the finest warriors. We are all volunteers and soldiers by trade, not farmers and fishmongers pressed into service. There is a century of tradition, honor, and tactical mastery in our ranks. We don't let just anyone into the Legion. Only Northmen of character and prowess are welcome. What if a capable Tearsman wish to join? We would not recruit even a champion of the Tearsmen. Each soldier in the Legion is tied by blood and fealty to those that stood with Graven Ash during the coming of Kairos. That is part of who we are, and that will never change. So why are they called the Disfavored? That's a good question. It is a name born in shame, now worn in honor. After Graven Ash stood against Kairos, he was forced to give up much. His allegiance, his pride, and the name of his vaunted army. What was it originally called? The name has been forgotten by all save Ash and Kairos, and it is considered bad form to bring up the topic. Since you didn't know any better, I'll say this much. Disfavored is the only name by which one needs to know us. Let's speak of something else. Back to my previous questions. Let's ask about the Scarlet Chorus. Our allies do not share the disfavored sense of honor and discipline. The Chorus will trust any criminal, rapist, or half-wit with a truncheon or blade. What would you like to know about the Scarlet Chorus? You're just gonna hate on him, but whatever. What do you think about Nayrat? The Archon of Secrets, all I know are rumors, hearsay, speculation, but that's as much as anyone knows of the voices. Some accounts tell that he's actually dead, and the Overlord has trapped the minds of his foes in the same body to torture them all. As likely an explanation as any I've heard. In truth, I know little of the voices, and have reason to suspect almost anything about him could be true. You could tell me his tears turn cheese back into milk, and it would seem more sensible to believe you than not. You know anything of his powers? I'm no scholar of sorcery, but as I understand it, the voices of Nayrat is the thief of minds. They say he can swipe your thoughts and make them his own. I don't know how it works. When I recruited into the Disfavored, the Iron Marshal told me never to take an audience with the voices if I didn't have a witness on hand. That's creepy. Do you think he's disloyal? I really shouldn't comment on such matters. Barik looks ahead blankly and then clears his throat. Darn, if I had more loyalty, I might have gotten something out of him. I heard his tears can turn cheese into milk. That's very amusing, Fatebinder. We loyalty too now? Yeah. Dude, that joke fucking crushed loyalty. So much loyalty because of that cheese joke. Let's read that again. I heard his tears can turn cheese into milk. What do you know about his associate, Siren? Siren is the Archon of Song and one of the youngest of her rank. She can influence human emotion with her voice alone. The voices may be the conductor of the chorus, but I'd argue Siren is their best weapon. The voices put her talent to good use. He had her singing a song up and down the coast, and the tearsmen defected to the chorus in droves. More questions about the Scarlet Chorus, then. What can you tell me of their troops and tactics? Tactics? These are the first I've heard of them. The chorus is more of an irregular mob than a proper army. Still, it's a well-armed mob, and they even have a few proper warriors and magicians, and their pitiful excuse for ranks. What do you know of the warriors? Most chorus rats are untrained peasants, handed a knife or a pitchfork. It doesn't take much to qualify you for the front lines. One only needs a beating heart, and even then the chorus could make do. Of course, not everyone in the chorus is an infirm child or sickly old crone. Some ex-soldiers and madmen join, and the fighting elite of the chorus form a clique known as the Scarlet Furies. Verse chimes in and says, Barik is too dismissive by far, but he's right that most recruits are novices pressed into service. Most will not survive the first few battles. Those who live will have experience to lead, and those who fall can easily be replaced. What sort of magic does the chorus use? The blood chanters are the mages who follow the voices of Nayrat. Like the chorus itself, their order is not steeped in tradition and antiquity. Rather, built on knowledge stolen from other guilds. Their fire magic earns them a place on the battlefield, but they also have chance to stir the mind and the heart. The motherless sods to spells that can bolster a man's courage or tap into his fears. So it sounds like, even though he hates them, he has like a mild knowledge of the fact that they're useful, which is good. If the chorus is a mob, how is it led and supplied? The voices of Nayrat gives orders to his elite commanders, who in turn send instructions out to the gang captains. But beneath that hierarchy, it is chaos. Whole gangs will break from the larger force and disperse back into their homelands. The chorus is inefficient beyond words, and yet more bodies keep coming in to replace those lost in the mess. Verse chimes in again and says, Inefficient? Every weakling lost in the shuffle is one less burden to those in the choir still dancing to the song of battle. Our ways must be harsh, otherwise the stupid and the soft will inherit the chant. Barik retorts, The chorus has a lot of mouths to feed, so the conscripts that can't or won't fight are made to gather food and water. Else, I'm told, they're fed to the pigs, becoming food and water, in a sense. Barik shrugs. A fine contrast to the honor, efficiency, and decency of the Disfavored. The Legion demands courage and tenacity, but provides us with good iron, and does not leave its soldiers to forage like vultures. How do you think the Scarlet Chorus convinced so many tearsmen to join? It began with Siren. She had a song that got whole villages marching to her will, and once these peasants killed their neighbors or cousins in service of the voices, it either hardened them into warriors or broke their mind for servitude. Lots of criminals and drifters joined the chorus too. It seems like the scum of the tears just needed the promise of glory and sanctioned debauchery to turn on their neighbors. It's not pretty, and it shouldn't be, Verse responds. The chorus is a forge. All the dirt of the tears goes in, and the finest bits are refined into weapons. Barik responds, There are many that join the Scarlet Chorus because they wish to join the winning side. It's a shame that such patriots were not born to proper northern stock, too weak or too slight to be disfavored. The Scarlet Chorus is their best freedom from fealty to the younger realms. Not everyone has the fortune of gaining Tunan's favor. Let's see, I get responses here. Better that the tearsmen serve Kairos in some capacity than have them rot in mass graves. A disfavored turn away all people from the tears. That seems selective to the point of foolishness. The tearsmen would only be a weak link in the disfavored shield wall. I'm going to go with the second one. You know what? I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with the first one. They'd be best served lugging grain for the disfavored, but you're certainly correct. Even the lowliest tearsman deserves the chance to serve, even as fodder for the front lines. He seems to disagree with the Disfavored philosophy on that then, doesn't he?
Good. Let's move on to another matter.
What can you tell me about the tiers? Uphill both ways and full of dumb sods. I learned some history and training, and I've been here for a few years, but I'm no expert. What do you think of the local forces? There was a time in the war when I would have feared the younger realms working together. Imagine that, he chuckles. Once I saw the modest scope of their defensive, I knew they would be easily outclassed. They couldn't even rally their best to make a competent stand. Tell me the Vendrian Guard. It used to be the Queen's Royal Army of Vendrian. I guess defeat inclined them to a shorter name. We crushed them back in 429. I'm proud to say I took part in that decisive battle. You know the rest. A year after we thought them conquered, thousands of Vendrian Oathbreakers murdered the garrison and declared themselves free of the Overlord's rule. Tell me about the Unbroken. The Unbroken Union of Stalwart. May they rot in the decrepitude of their fallen realm. Barik squeezes his gauntlet into a hard fist. Much as it pains me to admit it, in all the realms of the tiers, the Unbroken have been the only foe worthy to meet the Disfavored in battle. The Unbroken value tradition just as we do. Stalwart has never lost a war on their own soil, a reputation they take quite seriously. I need a refresher on the Unbroken. The Unbroken Legion was the proud and accomplished army of the realm of Stalwart, citing their victories as evidence of skill. They prided themselves on never facing defeat while fighting on home soil. After the Edict of Storms tore apart Stalwart and twisted it into the Blade Grave, barely a 20th of the Unbroken's former strength survived to continue the war against Kairos' forces. Okay, so they're like the army of Stalwart. It is fortunate that Stalwart has poor relations with all its neighbors. The rest of the tiers will not come to their aid. So as bravely as they fight, their end is inevitable. What about the Bronze Brotherhood? Mercenaries from the free cities. The chorus needed extra muscle, and you can always mint new rings. Hard to believe the tiersmen turn on each other for mere loops of metal. The Bronze Brotherhood worships the Scourges. Yes, those monsters from the old walls. The mercenaries are grown adults that willingly admire a magical abomination. Read into that what you will. Bronze Brotherhood. I don't really have time to read all this. We'll get back to it. Back to my previous questions. What about the younger realms? Before we marched on the bastard tier, I recall Graven Ash giving us a speech as we stood assembled at Fort Resolution. He told us that the younger realms lacked the sense to make a stand against us. I don't think I need to point out that the average tiersman is just plainly inferior to the sons and daughters of the North. For every one of ours they kill, we must drag a score and a half bleeding into the soil with us. It didn't help that they're afraid of magic and relied on their battlefield prowess to stage a defense. What about the Beastmen? They drilled us on Beastman combat before the invasion, but it did little to prepare us. The local savages are lacking in brains, hygiene, and the ability to arm themselves. Yet the prime hunters of their species are formidable. Aside from being rapacious killers, the Beastmen make good haulers and laborers once you've killed the half that won't follow orders. It's interesting, kind of a look into the area. You seem like a capable fighter. I trained with the spear and shield in my youth, but gave it up the day I earned Disfavored Iron. I can still throw with some accuracy, but it's a challenge these days. He knocks twice on his helmet. Why, were you interested in a sparring session? Sure. Show Northern, how Northern would impale a wild boar. Would be my pleasure. Barik demonstrates a clever move with a spear where he feints, baits the enemy by dropping the defense, and follows through by extending the weapon in a graceful plunge. He executes the maneuver several times, and you are taken aback by his grace. When you are finished, Barik looks out onto the northern horizon in thoughtful silence, saying no more. What do you think of our travel companions? I'm more accustomed to traveling in the company of soldiers, so I'm out of practice, judging the worth of civilians and miscreants. If you had any particular in mind, I would give them some thought. What do you think of Verse? He had far less voice acted dialogue than Verse did. I got Kitty here on the table. I try not to. She's a force of chaos, an agent of the voices of Nayrat. Taking her into our confidence can only lead to ruin. And yet she is a capable fighter. For the time being, I am confident that you can trust her to serve your interests and rely on her skills on the battlefield. Hey, buddy. Over here. She may even offer some useful perspective on the war. Oh, whoops. Is there anything more to say to Barik?
You look as if you have something on your mind. What can I do for you?
Let's discuss some immediate concerns. What do you think of our circumstances? The edict left little room for confusion. A representative of the Overlord must breach Ascension Hall before Kairos' Day of Swords, and must assume death is the price of failure. I got Kitty knocking everything over with his tail. We should assist the Disfavored in their siege preparations, as the only Legion should take the Wells fortified citadel. I wouldn't wager a wooden ring on the Scarlet Chorus impressing anyone but the Vultures. What do you think about me? Any reservations I have aside, your military record speaks for itself. You are Tudor's Fatebinder, and my opinions on the matter don't come into it one way or another. Alright, we'll talk later. Okay, so that was a cool, quick 30-minute convo where we learned a lot about Barik. Let's see, some takeaways. We learned about the realm we're in and the people who occupy it. We learned about how Barik came into his armor and why, and just the dust and storm and everything that weighs on him greatly. We learned that the Disfavored got their name because Graven Ash bowed down to Kairos after Kairos defeated him in battle, and then it kind of enlisted him due to the fact that his armies fought so valiantly against Kairos. We learned about some of the other guys in Kairos' little group. Nothing too significant. And we kind of learned that Barik is almost like a metaphorical representation of the Disfavored, stuck in a stingy, dark armor that he can't escape from, and is so rigid that he is limited in both his physical mobility, but also like his cognitive ability is limited by his loyalty and fealty to the Disfavored. So I think this was productive. I think what we're going to do now, real quickly, before I sign off, is we're going to group up the party.
On it.
Everybody's going to come over here with Barik. And we are going to head over to the Scarlet Chorus camp. Because I am done here. Yeah, that's on the way. We'll go there first. 1 hour and 30 minutes. Oh! We have been blocked by the Vendrian Guard. Okay. Well, if I can save, I will save. And then
That's far enough, Fatebinder.
no, unfortunately I gotta get going, but okay. Well, let's do it. Or no, I can't. I literally can't. Okay. Well,
sends us the Queenslayer. The old judge has.
We're gonna close out. And next time we will run into these people. I'll figure out what to do to get it back here. I shouldn't have traveled down that road. I shouldn't have done it. I should have saved and been safe. But I'll figure it out. Anyways, for now, thanks for watching. Make sure to go check out our podcast, Mandate Radio. And I will see you next time on Pete Plays Tyranny. Goodbye.